everyone, it's Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to make these yarn bowls, or just bowls, baskets, whatever you want to call them, that are made out of t-shirt yarn. Really simple pattern, and I'll also give you instructions on how to make it longer because this is an oval bowl. And I'll give you instructions on how to make it longer if you want to. They're perfect for using as yarn ball holders so that you can crochet or knit, of course. And we're going to show you how to make this bowl and also talk a little bit about the Lion brand fettuccine t-shirt yarn. Now the free crochet pattern is on my blog, and you can find that link down in the notes underneath this video. And at the bottom of that blog is also a link that you can click where I made my own t-shirt yarn a few years ago, and you can do the same thing with your leftover t-shirts. Now if you look at these two bowls, you'll notice that this one here is just a little bit smaller. And let me explain to you a little bit about the fettuccine yarn that I ordered from Lion brand. They had these on sale for $1 a piece, which is a great bargain. And if you ordered enough from Lion brand during the sale, there was free shipping. So I ordered some of these, and I love them. They're lots of fun, and there's tons of projects that you can do with the fettuccine. And basically what it is it's a t-shirt yarn. All of them, let's see, there it is. All of them are a number 6. Even this one is a number 6. When I ordered them, what I ordered is just an assortment. And I got lots of fun colors and some solids, some creams, and some different pinks and blues and things. And I love them all. I have lots of fun projects planned. But something that I noticed is that they weren't all the same when it came to how thick the yarns were. And basically t-shirt yarn is just made out of t-shirt, and they cut it a certain way and then it gets pulled, which causes it to roll in. Well, this one, of course, you can see is quite a bit smaller than this one, even though they're all a number 6. So you need to keep that in mind when you're working with t-shirt yarn, whether you purchase some or you made it yourself. And there are several other brands out there that do have t-shirt yarn. I really enjoyed working with these, but I had to keep in mind that some of them are thinner than others. All right, let me move these out of the way. We'll pull our bowls back. This one you can see was made with the gray and pink, and then this one was made with that black and some of the cream. And you can see here I did 3 rows instead of 2 rows for the stripe row, because it was smaller as far as the yarn, and I wanted them to try to sit about the same. This one's just a little bit smaller, but it's still really sturdy and really pretty and really usable. So what you're going to need to make a bowl like mine, I'm calling it a tarn yarn bowl, is you're going to need 2 kinds of the tarn or t-shirt yarn. It takes approximately 9 ounces altogether. Just depends on how tightly you stitch and how many rows you do, because you'll need more rows if you use a thinner t-shirt yarn. For the demonstration today, I'm just going to be using these 2. We're going to make the bowl in the white and pink, and we're going to do the stripe in the gray and pink and black, or blue, I think that's blue, and then finish up with this one. We're going to be stitching today with an end hook, and this end hook is a 10mm end hook. So you need a good chunky crochet hook for this project. Now we aren't going to be using a needle to weave in our ends, and I'll show you how to do that with our crochet hook as we go. And then of course you'll need your scissors. Okay, let's get started. We're going to begin at the bottom of our bowl. We're going to start with our slip knot, put our hook in, and we're going to chain 6. So there's our 6 chains. We're going to place 2 single crochets in the second chain from the hook. Here's our first chain, so we'll go right in this second chain and stitch 2 single crochets. All right, now we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches. So there's 1, 2, there we go, 3. My last chain is a little bit tight, so let me loosen that up a little bit because we're going to have to place 2 single crochets in this last chain. All right, so we place 2 single crochets in the second chain from the hook, then we stitch 3 more, 1 in each of the next 3 chains, and then 2 single crochets in those last 2. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 single crochets. We're going to turn our work, and we're going to work down what's called the opposite or other side of the chain. And we're going to go right in this first chain, and we're going to stitch 2 single crochets. There we go. Now we'll stitch 1 in the next 3. I think my string's getting, there we go. Pull that out of the way there. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do 1 more. And then 2 in the last. All right, now this bowl is not joined, it's stitched in the round. So what you need to do is take a piece of yarn or a stitch marker, and when I'm working on something this big, I like to just grab another piece of yarn and just put it right through there, and you'll see how that works. It works a lot better when I'm doing this type of t-shirt yarn than to try to finagle a stitch marker over this thick yarn. So I'll just use a piece of yarn and I'll move it up for every row. Now, working all the way around here, you should have a total of 14 single crochets because we did 7 and 7 for 14 single crochets. Now, if you want the bottom of your bowl or basket to be longer, like maybe you want it to hold more balls of yarn, we started with 6 and began in the second chain from the hook. And 2 stitches basically equal about an inch, depending on the thickness of your t-shirt yarn. And you can add 2 chains per inch to make it longer when you're doing your beginning chain. And that's how you can adjust the size. All right, let's do row 2. We're not going to join, we're going to begin right in that next stitch and stitch. Let's get that black thread out of the way that I'm using as a stitch marker. And we're going to stitch 2 single crochets in each of the single crochets around. And what we're doing here is forming the bottom of the bowl so that it'll lay nice and flat. So we're going to put 2 single crochets in each of the 14 single crochets around. And this is going to cause the bottom to lay nice and flat so our bowl doesn't roll around when we're trying to use it. And it will be tight. You'll have to really get it in there. But it's worth it. It really is. This yarn is so much fun to work with. It's a little tricky. And I also found in the different thicknesses of the fettuccine yarn that some of it is stretchier than other. The black yarn that I used for the smaller bowl was not as stretchy as this white and pink yarn is. And so that's another thing to keep in mind when you're making your bowls. All right, so I'm going to continue working around, stitching 2 single crochets in each of those 14 single crochets, just working on around till I get back over here. So I stitched those 2 single crochets in each of those 14 single crochets around, which gave us now for row 2 28, because 14 and 14 is 28. We're going to take our black yarn and just move it forward just like that. And that's how we mark the beginning of our next row. For row 3, we're going to place 2 single crochets in the first single crochet. A little bit tight there. There we go. Then we'll just place 1 single crochet in the next. And that's the way row 3 will work. 2 single crochets in the next single crochet. Looks like I got a little bit of a tear there in my t-shirt yarn I need to look at. And then 1 single crochet in the next. And we'll do this all the way around. But I want to take a look at that and make sure that that's not going to come apart. But let's go ahead and do a few more stitches just to make sure you see how row 3 works. 2 single crochets. There we go. 1 and 2 and the next, and then 1 single crochet in the next. Yep, there we go. And that's the way that row 3 will work. 2 and 1, 2 and 1, all the way around till we get back over here where our stitch marker is to mark the beginning of our next row. And 2, and then 1 in the next. I completed row 3 around, and we did 2 and 1, 2 and 1 all the way around, and I pulled up my black yarn to mark my beginning of my next row. And you'll notice it might be a little curly, or it might not lay quite as flat as you would like. That might be because you're stitching too tightly. But as we stitch the bowl, you'll see that it will lay a lot flatter as it starts to take its shape. All right, now for row 4, we're going to only stitch 1 single crochet in each stitch, but we're going to be doing the back loops only. And that's going to also help the bowl sit up nicely. So what that means is if you look on your top of your stitches, you'll see there's a loop on the front and a loop on the back. All right, and we're only going to be stitching on that back loop. The back loop is the loop that's facing away from you. The front loop is the loop that's facing you. And we're only stitching in the back loop 1 single crochet in each single crochet around. And at this point, you should have 42 single crochets if you didn't add any extra chains at the beginning to make your bowl bigger. And your stitch count will not change for the remainder of this project. We'll always be at 42 single crochets. All right, so we're going to go in the back loop and stitch a single crochet. And we'll do this on each stitch around. My t-shirt yarn has gotten unusually thick in this particular section, So you can see that it isn't completely consistent even within one of the balls or skeins of the t-shirt yarn. So that's another thing to keep in mind. What you'll see as you stitch is you'll see a line right across here because we're only stitching in the back loops, and so that line will become visible, and that's what by how we're stitching in those back loops is what's going to help the bowl or basket sit up nicely. So for row 4 we're stitching 1 single crochet in each of the single crochets around, stitching in the back loops only. Now my t-shirt yarn's gotten just a little bit thick right there. Look at that. Well, I'm going to get a nice sturdy bowl then, aren't I? As you stitch this row, you'll begin to see how it's going to go forward and that line will show. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and continue working 1 single crochet in each single crochet around, working in the back loops only till I get back around to where my yarn marker is. So this is how it should look at the end of row 4, and you'll begin to notice that the sides of your bowl will start moving up. And you'll have that little line right there, and this is for this row only. The rest of the rows will be stitching regular single crochets like we have been. Alright, so we're going to pull our yarn forward that we're using as our stitch marker. And we're just going to stitch 1 single crochet in each single crochet around, and we'll go right in like we usually do. The back loop only was for row 4 only. For row 5, row 6, and row 7, we're going to stitch 1 single crochet in each single crochet around. So we'll be doing 3 rows of just 1 single crochet in each single crochet around. So do 3 rows. I stitched those 3 additional rows of 1 single crochet in each single crochet around, and now I want to change colors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2, and I'm going to cut my yarn. I'm going to go behind the next stitch and pull that loop in and tie off to the inside. All right. We'll worry about that in just a minute. So what we're going to do is we're going to count forward 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to stick our hook in and bring our new color in. Then we'll go to the next stitch, pull up a loop, and do a single crochet. Now I need to pull that down so that stays put. And then we'll continue to single crochet with our new color all the way around our bowl. And this is going to give us a much neater color change than if we would have just brought our color in the traditional way. All right, so we're going to move all the way around stitching, and then we'll stitch right over these tails of yarn, and that will eliminate us having to weave those in as well. All right, so I'm going to work around the bowl, stitching 1 single crochet in each single crochet around till I reach that join there, or that, what a lot of people call it, a jog, where we ended our last color and joined our next color. And I'll show you how to do that so that it looks nice and neat. So I'm continuing around with my single crochets. So I've worked around the bowl, stitching that one single crochet in my gray yarn. And we're back over here where we ended and where we joined in our new colors. And what we're going to do is we're just going to continue to stitch single crochets, going right over those slip stitches. So learn not to stitch them so tightly because it's really hard to get this big old hook in there. All right, we'll go right in there. And you'll see there's this yarn right here. We'll stitch right over it as we're stitching through those single crochets. There we go. And now I don't have to come back and weave that in. I stitched right over it and it's gone. All right, so here's the piece where we began. So I'm going to lay it that way and I'm going to stitch over it as we go and meet up with the new color that we had joined in. All right, and now we just go in that first single crochet and we stitch another row for our striping. Stitch this stitch, and I can move my hand so you can see. I'm going to pull that to the back. I usually just take a look and see what's showing. There we go. We'll hook that with our hook and pull it to the back. There we go. All right, so what we did is we stitched across where we ended and we stitched over that piece of yarn, and so now that's a nice neat row without that little jog of color change. Then where we joined in our new color, we stitched over it again, and we can cut these strings off because we stitched over them. They're done. We don't have to come back and weave them in anymore. And I like to do it this way, especially with t-shirt yarn, because it's really hard to find a needle that's big enough to thread and be able to get through those tight stitches. And t-shirt yarn isn't, you know, pieces of yarn that you can go through like regular acrylic or cotton yarn. All right, so then we stitched over where we began, and we're just going to keep going right around this bowl for another row, and then we'll repeat what we did and bring our white yarn back in to finish off the top of our bowl. Now I'm only stitching 2 rows. That's what the pattern calls for. But if you want your bowl or your basket to be just a little bit taller, like the black one that I did, because the yarn was so much thinner, you can add a 3rd row. And the truth of the matter is you can stripe it however you want to. Do as many stripes as you want, as many colors as you want, and just have fun with the bowl. All right, so I'm just going to work my way back around so that I have 2 full stripes of this gray color t-shirt yarn. So I've stitched those 2 stripes of the gray, and now I'm going to do what we did with the white. I'm going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. And a slip stitch, in case you're not sure, you go in, you pull up a loop, and then you pull that loop through the loop that's on your hook, just in case you can't remember what a slip stitch is. All right, I'm going to go ahead and cut this gray yarn. I'm going to go behind, I'm going to pull that loop to the back, and then tie off to the inside. And again, when we come back around, we can stitch over that. All right, so now I'm going to move forward about 5 stitches. I'm going to bring back in my white. And we'll repeat what we did. I'm going to hold that white down. I'm going to go in the next stitch, get in there, and stitch that single crochet. And then again, we'll stitch over this when we come back around. All right, so let's go ahead and stitch a row with our white. We're going to stitch 1 more row of the white And then we'll finish off with one last row of single crochet and we'll be done. All right. Yes, this white yarn has gotten quite a bit thicker than the gray at this point. So I think this basket's going to be just a little bit bigger than my other one. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stitch one single crochet in each of the single crochets around, stitching over those pieces of yarn so we don't have to weave those in later. And then I'll stitch another row to finish off the top, and I'll show you how to tie off at the end. So I've stitched those 2 rows of single crochet. Here's our 2 rows of the gray, and then here's our 2 rows of the single crochet in white. I've come to the end. I'm going to go right in that next stitch, and I'm just going to stitch a slip stitch. There we go. And then I'll stitch a slip stitch in the next one, and we'll finish off the same way that we have when we changed colors. We'll cut our yarn. We'll go to behind the next stitch and pull the loop to the back and tie off to the inside. Now, because when we were doing our color changes, we stitched over those yarns, we don't have any of those to weave in. Now I do have one here that needs to be weaved in and here. And let me show you what I do. Since I don't have a crochet, or I mean a needle, that this thick yarn works well with, I just go ahead and use my hook, and I'll just go like below and move it around in, and then I'll do it again and maybe go to the next stitch, and I try to stay within the color. There we go. I want to go down here. That I'm using. Like if I'm using the pink and white, I try to stay in the pink and the white. And I'll work that in until I run out of yarn, and I might even pull this because that's nice and tight. There we go. And pull that end underneath a stitch, just like that. And I'll need to do that in here as well. But this is the bowl, and I do think this one turned out just a little bit bigger. See, here's the original one. And here's this one. So it's a little bit bigger. So here's the 2 bowls together. The pink and white one is just a wee bit bigger, not much, than the gray one. And these are fantastic take-along bowls to take with you on when you go traveling on the airplane or in your car or in your RV. You can use this to keep track of your ball of yarn, and then you can fold it up and put it in your yarn bag if you want to take it with you. So there's those 2, and then here's the black one that's smaller, and these are made out of fettuccine yarn. I hope that you'll either make yourself some tarn or you'll purchase some, because it really is a lot of fun to work with.